Once upon a time, he sat on that corner for 7 years asking for spare change. But the richest thing about him wasn't what he'd lost, it was what he didn't yet know he had. His name was Rog. Every morning before dawn, he would walk to the same street corner in the city. The concrete was cold beneath him. His clothes were worn through at the elbows and knees. The cup in his hands was plastic, faded from years of sun and rain. Around him, thousands of people passed. Businessmen in pressed shirts, women with designer bags, children holding their parents' hands. They moved like a river around a stone, most of them never slowing down, never really seeing him at all. But if you looked closer, if you really watched him during those quiet moments between the morning rush and the afternoon crowds, you would have seen something the others missed. You would have seen a man whose eyes were still alive, a man who was watching, a man who was learning. Most people saw a beggar. But if you looked closer, if you really watched him during those quiet moments, you'd see something else entirely. Rog wasn't always on this corner. There was a time when he wore a shirt with buttons that matched, a time when he had a desk, a supervisor, a paycheck that came on Thursdays. He had a wife who made tea in the mornings. He had dreams about opening his own business, about being the kind of man who built things. Then came the layoffs. Then came the failed business venture that cost him everything he'd saved. Then came the series of small defeats, each one a little easier to accept than the last. And somewhere in that sequence, something inside him broke. Not dramatically, quietly. He began to believe a story about himself, and not the kind of person success happens to. If you've ever felt like the world has already decided who you are, and there's no point fighting it, then you know exactly what Rog felt. First, he stopped applying for jobs. Then he stopped believing he deserved them. He wasn't trapped by circumstance. He was trapped by a choice he made over and over, the choice to agree with his own smallness. The poverty was the symptom. The belief was the disease, and so he built a routine. Every day, the same corner, the same cup, the same silent agreement with himself that nothing would ever change. 5 in the morning. Roger's eyes opened in the shelter, a converted warehouse with 30 other men sleeping on thin mats. He didn't need an alarm. His body had learned the rhythm. He would fold his mat, step into his shoes and walk. Always the same route, always the same corner. By 6:30, he was sitting. The cup was positioned between his knees. His back was against the wall. He would watch the city wake up, the businessmen hurrying past, the students on their phones, the mothers with children. By sunset, he would count the coins. 30 rupees, 45 rupees, 60 on good days. He would return to the shelter, eat rice and dal and sleep every day. The same rhythm confirmed the same truth. I am a beggar. But here's what nobody talks about. The routine wasn't trapping him anymore. He had started choosing it, because at least he knew who he was. At least the story was familiar, until one morning something shifted. Not in his circumstances, in his mind. A boy stopped in front of him, maybe 8 years old, with a school uniform and a backpack. He stood there, just looking. Most people didn't look. They looked past. But this boy looked directly at Roger's face. "Why are you sad?" the boy asked. Rog had no answer. No one had ever asked him that before. No one had ever suggested he was a person with feelings rather than a fixture on the corner. That night, lying on his mat, Rog couldn't stop thinking about it. The boy didn't see a beggar. He saw a sad man. This meant something terrifying. Roger's identity wasn't fixed in the world. It was fixed in his own mind. People were responding to who he believed he was. Over the next week, small moments began to compound. A shopkeeper offered him work. Rog refused before the words were even finished. A stranger smiled at him. Rog assumed it was pity. Each interaction confirmed his theory. I'm invisible. I'm a beggar. Nobody sees my potential. But underneath the shame, something unfamiliar stirred. A question. What if he was wrong about himself? If you've ever caught yourself automatically saying no to opportunities, turning down help, or assuming the worst about how people perceive you, this is the moment Rog started waking up. That night, sitting alone, Rog asked himself a question he hadn't dared ask in years. A regular customer began to stop. An older man in a blue shirt who worked at the bank nearby. He would sit beside Rog for a few minutes, ask his name, ask about his day. "You should try selling something," the man said one afternoon. "Start small, use what you know." For the first time in years, Rog felt something spark, possibility, hope. A voice inside him whispered, "Maybe," but another voice, louder, older, more familiar, immediately crushed it. "Don't get your hopes up. You're a beggar. This won't last. People like you don't get opportunities." That night, Rog made a mistake. He imagined it. A small food cart. His own business. What that would feel like. For 30 seconds, he let himself believe. Then reality returned like a slap. You don't have money. You don't have education. You don't have connections. Who would ever trust you? But then he overheard two businessmen talking. They discussed foot traffic patterns, peak hours, customer flow. Rog realized he'd been sitting on this corner long enough to know all of it. He had market knowledge. He had learned without trying. This is where you live, isn't it? Caught between knowing you could be more and believing you're not the type of person who becomes more. Then came the day that changed everything. Not because circumstances shifted, but because Rog finally got honest about where the real prison was. He was sitting on his corner when the realization hit him like a wave. I've been free to leave this corner for years, and I chose to stay. Every single day, I chose this. The thought wouldn't leave. He sat there as the afternoon crowd moved around him. People walked past. The city continued. And Rog faced something unbearable. He was not a victim of circumstance. He was a victim of his own belief. He had been his own beggar master. He had been the one saying he wasn't good enough. The poverty wasn't the tragedy. His acceptance of it was. His chest tightened. His eyes burned. And then tears came, not from despair, but from the weight of recognizing his own power. He had been free the entire time. He just didn't know it. What if I'd been wrong about who I am? The question sat in the silence between heartbeats. And in that moment of complete breakdown, something unprecedented happened. Rog chose to believe in the possibility of Rog. The mentor never arrived as a person. It arrived as a question Rog asked himself in the silence that followed. What if I treated myself like I treat my regular customers? The thought was small, but it opened something. When the bank man came to his corner, Rog asked him questions. What did he need? What did he struggle with? What would make his day better? Rog listened. He learned. He cared. What if I asked myself those same questions? What do you want, Rog? What are you good at? What could you offer? The answers came slowly. 7 years on this corner, and he'd learned people's schedules without trying. He knew which workers needed lunch at noon. He knew which students passed at 3 o'clock. He knew the rhythm of the city like his own heartbeat. He had been conducting market research without knowing it. But I'm not a businessman, he thought. I don't have capital. I don't have connections. Then he stopped. He asked differently. What do I actually have? If I'm smart enough to survive on the street for 7 years, what am I smart enough to do with intention? Something shifted. The answer wasn't external. It was the recognition of capacity he already possessed. That's when Rog realized something that nobody ever told him about identity. Identity is not fixed. It's a story you tell yourself repeatedly until it becomes invisible as truth. But a story can be rewritten. Rog made a decision, not a plan. A decision. He decided to tell a different story about himself. He wasn't a businessman yet, but he decided to see himself as someone capable of becoming one. He changed his posture. He stopped apologizing for existing. When people walked past, he didn't shrink. When the bank man came back, Raj asked him questions, not as a beggar seeking pity, but as someone learning a trade. Asterisk, he was still on the same corner, but his internal location had shifted completely. He was no longer the beggar. He was the person learning to build something. People responded immediately, not because he'd changed, because he'd stopped hiding. He wasn't a beggar pretending to be a businessman. He was a man who had been believing in the wrong version of himself. There was a potter, you see, who made pots he believed were broken, until one day he realized the pot was never broken. His belief was, your life isn't waiting for external permission. It's waiting for internal permission. The answer was exactly the opposite of what everyone told him. They said, get money first, then you can be successful. He discovered, be successful first, then money finds you, and then something unexpected happened. The moment he changed his belief, reality began to reorganize around it. Within 3 weeks, Raj had 15 rupees saved. He approached a shop owner he'd known for years. Can I borrow your utensils? The man said yes without hesitation. Something in Raj's voice had changed. Raj used his corner knowledge. He knew the lunch crowd arrived at noon. He knew which workers needed affordable meals. He knew the gap in the market. He made simple food, rice, dal, vegetables with quality he'd never given to his own survival. His regulars became his first customers. They didn't buy just because the food was good. They bought because they believed in Raj now. His belief was contagious. In the first month, he earned more than 7 years of begging. 3 months, he hired a helper. 6 months, he moved to a small cart with proper permits. 1 year, a stall. 2 years, a small restaurant with 4 tables and a kitchen that smelled like possibility. The transformation wasn't just external. Raj stopped being afraid. He dressed differently. He spoke differently. He smiled, not the smile of survival, but the smile of someone finally aligned with his own capability. But here's what mattered most. His success wasn't about the money or the business. It was about something much deeper. Your external life is always a perfect reflection of your internal identity. You cannot outperform your self-belief. You cannot succeed beyond your sense of belonging. Raj didn't get lucky. He didn't find a magic formula. He discovered something radical. Belief doesn't follow proof. Proof follows belief. The world doesn't decide who you are. You do. And then the world simply confirms your decision. Right now, somewhere, there's someone in circumstances that feel permanent, but their circumstances were never the problem. Their belief was, and belief can change in a single moment if you've been waiting for the world to believe in you. Stop waiting. You already have permission. You always did. Your poverty, whether it's financial, relational, creative, or spiritual, it started as a thought, which means it can end as a thought. The path from beggar to businessman wasn't easy, but it was simple. Just one decision made over and over. I choose to believe in myself. You're not stuck. You're just still agreeing with an old story about who you are. If you're in a situation where you feel invisible, undervalued, or trapped, this is your moment. The remedy isn't a better job. It's not more money or someone else's validation. The remedy is to stop waiting for external proof and start offering internal belief. It's not weak to feel stuck. It's human. What matters is the next thought you choose. You don't need permission from anyone else to believe in yourself. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to prove you deserve it first. The belief comes first. Today, right now. Ask yourself one question. If I believed in myself completely, what would I do differently? And then do one small thing that person would do. Your circumstances are not your identity. They're just the current expression of an old belief. New belief. New circumstances. Choose to be the kind of person who doesn't wait for permission. Because every moment you stay in the old story is a moment you're not building the new one. And your life is too short for that. Now Raj sits in his restaurant. It's not grand. for tables, a kitchen that hums with life. And around him are people he's lifted, young entrepreneurs he's mentored, workers he's employed, families eating meals he prepared. A young person asks him, "How did you do it?" Rog smiles. "I decided to believe in myself before I had any reason to, and the world organized itself around that belief. Your biggest obstacle was never circumstance. It was the story you believed about circumstance. You are not the sum of your failures. You are not defined by your past. You are defined by what you believe you're capable of becoming. It's okay to believe in yourself. It's more than okay. It's necessary. If this shifted something in you, share it with someone still sitting on the corner of their own limiting belief. What story about yourself are you finally ready to rewrite?